Thank you very much. Great to be here, and thank you very much for having me. So my name is Adam Hamadache. I'm going to be talking to you today about the AI generation gap. So as Maya mentioned, I'm the CEO and founder of Formula. We're a digital growth agency. There's a lot of talk at the moment, and rightly so, about how AI search in particular is changing guest behaviour. And I'm going to hopefully give you a bit of a summary of what's actually happening, but importantly, how the different generations are getting involved with these changes in search. On every slide, you'll find a QR code. There's going to be a lot of stats. I want you to use it as much as a reference document as it is hopefully quite informative. But there's also a cheat sheet. So if you use that QR code, you'll be able to access all of that. So 5 points from my presentation today. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the AI search shift. What are the big changes that have happened in the last 18 months, but also, importantly, what's happened in the last 90 days. Then I'm going to get right into the meat of it, the AI generation gap, how the different 4 generations are actually interacting with their search behaviour. I'm then going to talk about the changing role of the hotel website, where that sits in the marketing mix and how things are changing. I'm going to give you a finely balanced digital strategy, a few frameworks that we have found to work to drive growth across all the generations. And then if you've never done anything in terms of AI search sort of visibility, I'm going to give you my 4 kind of step process that if you're starting from scratch, do these 4 things over the next 90 days and that will put you on the right track. So let's start with it, the AI search shift. My big takeaway, I would suggest, to start this presentation, is that search behaviour has changed more in the last 18 months than in the previous 18 years. AI is rapidly reshaping the whole guest journey from discovery, research, comparison, and booking behaviour. So let's look at some of the big things that have happened over the last 18 months. To start, we look at ChatGPT, and obviously it has grown enormously. It took 2 months for it to get to 100 million weekly active users. Currently, it's sat about 900 million weekly active users, and if we compare that with the internet in general and Google, you can see just how quick it has been. Google taking about 12, 13 years, the internet taking about 10. ChatGPT did it in 3.3 years. Google search has fundamentally changed over the last 18 months, I'm sure you would have noticed. And one of the big changes, there was even a massive announcement 2 weeks ago, which I'll come on to, but one of the big changes that's happened over the last 18 months has been around the inclusion of AI overviews within the search engine result pages. So that's the AI bit that sits right at the top, where effectively Google is answering you with an AI solution. This is significant because right now it's around 60% of all searches are 0 click. So inevitably we are all, as websites, losing traffic because Google's answering rather than sending on to the rest of the internet as it sort of has used to do. So let's have a look at the last 90 days then. Some of the biggest shifts in travel search have actually happened just in the last few months. I would say one of the biggest ones, probably just around 90 days, maybe just slightly over, is that OpenAI, obviously the founder of ChatGPT, changed direction. It decided that being the world's biggest recommendation engine is actually a bigger opportunity than becoming a booking engine itself. So it ran an experiment in the US with this whole idea of instant checkout, where effectively it would allow customers, or users, should I say, to actually complete the purchase directly within the chat interface. It realized that there's a lot of headaches that come with that in terms of refunds and problems and all manner of things. So it decided that the handoff model is a much better way to go. And when you enable the Booking.com app within the ChatGPT interface, you get this little button that says view on Booking.com as opposed to book right now. So importantly, is this good or bad for hotels? Well, I think generally the impact is pretty positive. There are direct booking apps that now can be enabled, like the Hotels Network, albeit this is a relatively unproven concept. So all in all, that's a good change. In the last 2.5 weeks, TikTok Go launched in the USA. this is ultimately becoming where TikTok is becoming a booking channel, not just a discovery channel. I'll talk a little bit about Gen Zs and their behavior in a minute and why this is relevant. So this whole idea is about closing the gap between discovery and booking, but only through the OTAs. This whole process does not allow for the user to go from discovery on TikTok to direct hotel websites. And ultimately, creator content is becoming a distribution strategy, albeit very, very early days here because it only launched 2.5 weeks ago. So what is the impact for hotels? Well, frankly, nobody really knows because it was only 2 weeks ago and it was only in the US. But one can assume that these things are going to start happening. People will discover you on TikTok if you are on TikTok, and that instead of coming off TikTok and making a branded search about your property, they can just go directly through to an OTA to complete their purchase. So we're likely to see fewer branded searches, which could involve less direct web traffic and then fewer direct bookings. But those big changes, significant changes, are probably some way off given the recency of that announcement. ChatGPT ads, again, maybe just slightly longer than 90 days, have arrived in the USA. This year, it is projecting that they're going to do $2.5 billion worth of ad revenue, which is quite startling, given that it's only in America to start with. But by 2029, they predict they're going to do $100 billion worth of ad revenue through that platform. So what is the impact for hotels? I think that's actually positive because that's $100 billion worth of ad spend that are going to come out of Facebook, that's going to come out of Google in theory. So in theory, that should reduce the cost per clicks. So we'll see how that goes. The biggest change to Google, to the Google search bar in 25 years, that was the announcement that Google made about 3 weeks ago. There's a lot involved in this, but to break it down, Google is transforming search from keywords to conversations, which we sort of knew, that they're just really doubling down on that concept. Google is moving from links to answers. This is the big one. Google's interface, as it's rolled out over the summer, is going to look very, very different than the search engine result page that we've always known. And Google will start to complete tasks such as planning trips and even making bookings for us. So impact for hotels, I would suggest both positive and negative. We're going to get fewer opportunities to win traffic through traditional SEO alone because the interface that we all know of Google is ultimately going to change quite significantly. But increasingly, visibility will depend on AI confidence, not just rankings. So quite a lot to take in already, big changes over the last even few months, but let's look at how this impacts the generations, understanding how different guests discover and book. So I think it's fair to say that the market is splitting into different search behaviours. How each generation discover, research and validate and book your hotels is going to be very, very different. So to do this, naturally, I asked ChatGPT to create me 4 avatars for each of the generations. So I would like you to meet Sophie. And if Sophie was sat in your marketing meeting, she would be saying, if you want to market to me, I need inspiration before I want information. Sophie discovers hotels through these channels: TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, ChatGPT, and she makes these types of searches. A few stats to throw at you now. 64% of Gen Zs use TikTok as a search engine. 40% prefer TikTok or Instagram over Google for discovery. 74% use social media for travel inspiration. 57% say short-form video influences travel decisions, and 53% trust influencers more than traditional advertising. What does this all mean? A lot of numbers. Well, what it means is that Sophie and her generation discovers visually. She trusts creators over brands, she validates through reviews, and she books quickly on mobile. So the big key takeaway is probably not hugely surprising, but her booking journey is fast, social-led, and emotion-driven. So that leads us to James. He's a millennial. If he was in your marketing meeting, what he would be saying is, help me make the right decision. James still uses Google heavily, but increasingly layers AI into the research journey, so uses Google, ChatGPT, reviews, YouTube, OTAs. These are the types of searches that James is making, and 60% of millennials now use AI tools during travel planning. 71% compare hotels across multiple websites before booking, and 68% say reviews heavily influence booking decision, and 65% prefer booking direct when clear value is offered. So, what do we know about James? Well, James compares multiple tabs. He researches extensively. He validates through reviews, and he looks for direct booking value, which is a positive. So the key takeaways for millennials like myself: AI assists the decision but rarely makes it alone. He researches, compares, makes informed, logical decisions. That leads us to Sarah. She's Generation X. She's aged between 45 and 60. And if Sarah was in your marketing meeting, she would be saying, I already roughly know what I want. Sarah still relies heavily on Google, Booking.com, TripAdvisor, and brand websites. These are the types of searches that she's making. And nearly half of Gen X travelers still rely primarily on search engines. About half still regularly use OTAs during their trip planning. 2/3 say reviews are essential before booking. And 61% prefer desktop browsing for major travel purchases. So Sarah compares carefully. She values clarity and reassurance. She still visits multiple websites and often books direct if trust is high. So the key takeaway for Sarah is that the booking journey is structured, comparison-led, and less AI-influenced. Finally, David. If David's in your meeting, he's saying, just make things easy for me. David prefers Google, direct websites, OTAs, and recommendations. These are the types of searches that David is making. And 29% of baby boomers say they would use AI for travel recommendations, so a very small amount compared with younger generations. 68% still begin travel planning with Google search. 63% prefer booking through familiar brands or websites. And 58% say customer service influences booking decisions more than price. So how do we sum this up? Well, David researches slowly. He trusts established brands. He often books on desktop and may still call the hotel directly. So the booking journey is traditional, reassurance-led, and human first. So where does that leave us? Well, quite a fragmented place, unfortunately. Search has fragmented into multiple entry and influence points. If we to sum it up, Gen Z, social first discovery. Millennials, sort of a hybrid of AI-assisted journeys. Gen X, Google, and OTA comparison. And the baby boomers, traditional search behavior. AI search is growing rapidly, but traditional search still drives enormous revenue, at least for now. So let's look then at the changing role of the hotel website and how this affects your website and ultimately your marketing strategy. To explain this, I want to kind of go to the bare bones of what digital marketing is, if you'll allow me. The two roles of digital marketing before AI got involved were very simple. Number one, we need to build digital assets that inform, entice, and convert. So we design our websites, we curate our social media feeds, and we optimize our aggregator listings. The second role simply is to drive visibility and traffic to those assets. So organic, we can do that through SEO or building up our social following, or we can pay for it through a variety of different ad types. And generally, if you're running a marketing strategy, you invest in one, you pay for the other, and a bit of both is considered good practice. The problem we have now with AI getting into the mix is that when people make a branded search on your property, something that includes your brand name, or a non-branded search, something that describes who you are or where you are, we've been trying over the last 20 years to get them to our website to try to convince them. But now there's this bit in the middle that seems to be getting in the way. And I like to call this your AI shadow. It's effectively an unowned digital asset. You do not control it. You did not create it. But importantly, it's the first thing that customers are starting to see before they ever make it through to your website. And it's an important distinction because the AI shadow is not your brand, it's an interpretation of your brand. And a good way to think of it is a sort of a mishmash of your unique selling points, your online reputation, and as if like a journalist visited and gave an impartial critique of the experience that you offer. And this AI shadow can take many different forms, but generally it's one of these two. The 1 to 2 sentence recommendation. Now in traditional search, we're all used to seeing this, which is effectively the link, the page title, and then the meta description. This particular hotel would have written that, and if you read it, it's very considered. It's all about trying to lure in the click, give us as much information as possible in that space. That meta description, that page title, would have been highly considered, as I'm sure yours is, to try and entice that click to your website. The problem is now the AI shadow changes every single time it appears, and you don't control it. But importantly, that's the thing very often for customers that they're seeing before they go to any sort of further development of understanding what your hotel is about. That's sort of relatively innocuous, but where it starts to get a bit more challenging is the pros and cons evaluation. So what happens is generally when people ask, okay, I'm looking for hotels in Amsterdam, okay, that one looks good, tell me more, or tell me the pros and cons of staying at this particular property. And we're seeing this increasingly happening within the LLMs. And of course, the inevitable, the list sort of transpires and you get wonderful glowing pros, the positive attributes of your hotel, but the cons there appear. And the cons are effectively kind of your gatekeeper content. This is the stuff where the user or the potential customer decides, am I going to go deeper, or is that sort of, are those cons put me off from actually going even further to your website? So why is this so important? Well, for many generations and many customers, this is becoming the new first impression of your brand. The digital assets that we've worked so hard and has gone through so many rounds of approvals, they only get seen if the customer starts to go beyond the AI shadow, which of course we don't control. So how your business is described across the entirety of the internet matters more, arguably, than how nice your website looks. So, to use an example, I was in Athens not so long ago, and I asked ChatGPT to recommend the best, where can I get the best moussaka in Athens? And it came up with this fabulous restaurant, really highly rated, didn't have a bad word to say about it, glowing AI shadow. But interestingly, the two images that I've encircled were not the, I suspect, quite expensive professional photos that they had done, but of course, straight from TripAdvisor. So importantly, even when things are positive, you don't have full control of your first impression of these, of your business. So what does this mean? Bringing that context all together, what does this mean for the hotel website? Well, if we look at 2025 and previous years, this is what happened. And I always think a nice way of explaining this is the not so perfect but clearly understandable model of the marketing funnel, which assumes that every customer buying anything from a pair of shoes to a car or indeed a hotel room will go through these 5 stages of awareness, interest, consideration, intent, and purchase. When people make a search on traditional search engines like Google, or indeed Google as we know it currently, there's not much to go on. We get a couple of sentences, so inevitably we don't really go beyond awareness on that search engine, so inevitably we end up clicking, could be an OTA, could be your hotel website, but most of the sort of the back end of the funnel, the bottom part of the funnel, is done off a search engine. Where we are today is that AI search is doing more of that heavy lifting. They're doing more of that process to encourage users to get to the end point. And which makes sense, because AI search moves us much further down the funnel before we visit a website. We can say, okay, that looks good, tell me more, or give me those pros and cons. So we start arriving at the hotel websites much further. We're much closer to making a purchase. I delivered this slide at the Independent Hotel Show, and I had 2027 listed here. I had to change it because of the big changes in Google over the last few weeks. But by the end of this year, things keep moving forward. This, I think, is where we're heading, where AI search will do almost the entirety of the decision-making process. Guests will regularly develop the intent to purchase within AI search before being handed off to a website to complete their transaction. And we're seeing this again in the likes of ChatGPT, as you can see on the screen. So where does this leave us? Well, the website is actually no longer, I would argue, your most important digital asset. More potential customers will see your AI shadow than your website, so I believe we must prioritize accordingly. So that's quite a lot to take in, I imagine, so let's just have a quick recap. The search landscape has changed. Let's have a quick pause. Search landscape has changed. This is fragmenting guest behavior by generations, and it's created this new, vitally important digital asset, which I'm calling your AI shadow. So what do we do? How do we actually go about creating something that is going to drive growth for our hotels? That's why I'm going to present to you a finely balanced digital strategy. Anyone that's into nutrition will know that your macronutrients are the basis of a good balanced diet. So I'm going to walk you through the carbs, protein, and fats as a beautifully, nicely presented acronym to explain how you can drive growth over the coming years. Carbs is your fuel. That's AI visibility and discovery. Protein is your strength. That's where you're going to get conversion and revenue. And fats is your loyalty and retention. So let's go through each one. First and foremost, C stands for customer clarity. Clearly defining who your hotel is for so guests, platforms, and AI can instantly recognize your value. This matters because in an AI-driven world, ambiguity is a really bad thing. It needs to know exactly who you are, and you need to make it really clear for the AI platforms what you are about. So a very simple action I'm going to give you for each letter. I'm going to give you why it matters and a simple action that you can take. And again, feel free to use that QR code if you'd like the full slides. Define your hotel in one sentence. This hotel is best for these types of people who want this type of experience in this type of location. Now, obviously, you serve multiple guest types and demographics and what have you, but it's important to do this for a handful of your sort of avatar guests so you can be really clear who you are and what you do. Authority mentions is a really important part. So trusted third parties talking about your hotel. AI borrows confidence from credible sources, and the more authoritative the mention, the better, and the more likely AI platforms are to recommend you. So your action, pursue press coverage. Good digital PR, I would argue, is more important than ever, and in my experience, trade press coverage is an easy win. If you've got something meaningful to say, creating press releases and send it to the trade press to get that extra coverage can be a really easy and worthwhile thing to do. Reviews are growing in importance. AI reads patterns, not just your star rating. So specific language in reviews, things like quiet room, fast check-in, exceptional breakfast, these things, they feed the AI discovery. And a really simple thing that you can do is stop asking, how was your stay? Ask, what did you enjoy the most? Request specificity, and you're more likely to get better quality reviews. And it's important to address recurring issues. If you know you've got your refurbishment planned in January, and unfortunately some of the rooms are getting complained about because they're a little bit tired, keep mentioning the fact that your refurb is planned in January, and that will inform the LLMs. B stands for brand consistency. So making sure that you have aligned messaging everywhere you look on the internet. And any inconsistency reduces trusts. A very simple action that you can take is audit your name, address, and phone number on every channel. This is a really kind of easy thing to do, but seemingly quite overlooked. I gave a presentation at a 5-star hotel in London the other day and saw that there were 5 different names on 5 different platforms. Only slightly, but these LLMs are very pedantic, so you've got to make sure everything is exactly as it should be. So one positioning statement, one voice everywhere. Strengthen machine readability, so helping AI understand, parse, and recommend your hotel. AI platforms, they don't read your website, they pass through it, which is effectively a way of them understanding the content. Any unstructured websites are invisible to algorithms, shaping discovery. So structured FAQ sections, schema markup, and clear content hierarchies, they're your H1 and H2 heading tags, those sorts of things. and all answer the questions guests are already asking AI before they reach you. That leads us to protein. This is all about conversion and revenue. So this is really the framework for turning discovery into direct bookings. P is for paid media, using paid channels to intercept high intent demand. I think this is more important today, or will be by the end of the summer, than it ever has been, because our organic traffic is going to reduce significantly given the big Google changes that are just around the corner. Your action really to concentrate spend on that high intent audience, retargeted visitors, people that have visited your website but have not purchased. Your branded search, but also destination-ready travelers, which is relatively easy to do on Meta. Revenue optimization. I'm not going to come to a revenue conference and talk about revenue because I'm a digital marketer. Suffice to say that I use this image because making sure that everything is aligned with your digital strategy is so important. This is taken from one of our clients where we were seeing great results in organic visibility and traffic, but bookings were stagnant. And then we found out that we have a 60% OTA disparity. So 60% of the time they were cheaper on OTAs, which I appreciate is a bit of a whack-a-mole. It's not something I know how to do, but it's really important to make sure that you've got parity or indeed reduced rates on your direct channel. So your action, monitor your OTA disparity frequency, but it's probably teaching you how to suck eggs. Offers, giving guests a compelling reason to book now directly on your terms. So direct booking is always the least convenient option, and I think it's worth remembering that because ultimately Booking.com made it ever so easy just with those one-click innovations some years ago. So guests need a really clear, emotionally resonant reason to choose direct versus an OTA. So like the image suggests, using things like a rate comparison tool and really communicating the benefits of booking direct, whether it be free breakfast, whatever it is that you're offering. Targeting, I'm not going to go into too much detail. Obviously, we've gone at length about the different generations, but as we've discussed, they approach search in a very different way. So once you fully understand who your customer is, you can adapt your targeting accordingly. Experience optimization. This is a sort of a fancy way of just saying conversion rate optimization, squeezing as much revenue out of your website as humanly possible. Why this matters? Because guests simply won't tolerate a poor booking experience. And you can see there on the slide the core web vitals. I don't know if you're familiar with these. They're extremely jargonous. Largest contentful paint, I imagine, has not kept anyone up at night worrying about that particular stat. But it's a really important one because ultimately it defines how quick your website is. And again, it's got to be loading in under 2.5 seconds. So audit your mobile user experience from first click all the way through to confirmation. And this is a really obvious one, but I see this happen almost daily. Compress images. If you have access to your website, we see the CDN usage on our own server spike because a client has uploaded a 15 megabyte image to the website, and inevitably that slows everything down and bookings start to suffer as well. So again, a bit of a basic one, but compress images before uploading to your website. Intent capture is all about matching the content and landing pages to the guest intent. I think this is going to become of even more relevance over the coming months. So guests arrive closer to booking than ever before. We talked about that, and as you can see from the image that I've shared on the screen, we've recently ran a campaign to drive school holiday stays. So we drove them to that blog talking about half-term made easy with this particular client. So again, aligning landing pages precisely to the search limit. N is all about non-branded demand. Obviously, we want to attract people that aren't necessarily just searching for us by name. But importantly, growth comes from expanding that demand pool. And it's really important to create these destination-led, high-quality content pieces onto your website. So to draw on, the example, London with 3 generations without anyone falling out. When London is a month long, not a weekend. Where to stay in London when you're working long days. 3 very different types of customer, and we're talking individually to each one, and that's going to increase the relevance and ultimately increase the conversion. That leads us on to the FATs, the loyalty and retention. So First-party data. Guest data you own directly. Obviously, we need to capture as much email data as humanly possible, but importantly, we want their preferences as well. So we want to capture emails and use things like an OTA win-back campaign. Those encrypted email addresses that we get from Booking and Expedia tend to expire within about 30 days. We want to automate an email within a few days of checkout, encouraging them back and making sure that they're subscribed to our database so that we can continue to nurture and market to them. Audience nurturing is so important. Guests who discover you today may not convert for months, so making sure that you're building automated guest journeys, re-engagement sequencing. It's really important to just sort of send stories from time to time, not just sales offers. Everyone gets so many emails in their inbox. I'm sure you're no different. So it's really important to find that cut through and be engaging rather than here's another offer. Touch points, I don't see this happening enough when it comes to building that loyalty and retention. So the same message amplified across multiple channels is going to be far more impactful. And we have a saying in my business, and I think this really, I heard it some time ago and it really stuck with me. Your customers see you for the first time on the 11th time. We are in the attention economy. Everyone's got too many messages coming at them, whether it's LinkedIn, your email inbox, or whatever platform that you happen to be on. It's really important that you stay present throughout that decision-making process, but also when you've got something meaningful to say, like a sales campaign. So, of course, simple tactics that we can employ, like resending to everybody that didn't open the email first time, resend that again, 48 hours later with a different subject line. That almost always delivers extra bookings as a result. And using things like Facebook ad amplification, the process of effectively taking your email inbox, uploading it into Facebook, that matches it with Facebook profiles, and then advertising to those people saying, did you see the email? We've got a short-term 72-hour offer. Do not miss out. And again, that adds to the importance and the success of the campaign. Finally, simple sales emails, purposeful emails that say one thing well and only one thing. The more you say within an email, the less effective it is going to be. So create a 90-day campaign roadmap to start sending single message emails, and those will generally perform better than when you're trying to say about 5 or 6 different things. So that leaves us to your 90-day digital roadmap. We've covered a lot of ground so far. 4 steps. If you forget everything that I've said today, do these 4 things if you want to drive growth in the years ahead. FAQs on almost every single page. We've been building websites in my agency for about 10 years, and we always used to do an FAQ page and stick it somewhere in the footer, which nobody ever looked at. Now we make sure that FAQs feature on every main page in the top navigation. And that's really important because this is these sort of what we call answer capsules. They really help inform the large language models. So FAQs on every main page, as I mentioned. Monitoring your AI shadow, so that's that interpretation of your brand. Track how you're being recommended. Monitor for any negative sentiment and understand the cons of choosing your hotel. Yes, of course, you could ask ChatGPT or any other platform, and that's helpful, but you really need a tool that is pulling in lots of different varieties of this, because no one answer really is ever the same. Structure your website for AI. If your website is probably more than 5 or 6 years old, you don't necessarily need to redo it. You might do, but it really is all about adding more structure to it. What do we mean like this? I can never say this. LLMS.txt file, that's what you need to be adding in. It's a very simple file that sits at the back end of your website, and that again helps the large language models to read or pass through your website. Add schema markup to context, events, and FAQs. And finally, fixing the technical issues of your website. Things like missing meta descriptions, descriptive alt text to images, XML sitemap. Forgive me, this has gone very jargonous all of a sudden, but these things carry more weight than they ever did when we talk about traditional SEO. So, to round things off, I've got 5 key takeaways for today. Search behaviour is changing faster than anyone expected. The market is fragmenting by generation, so marketing strategy must reflect multiple discovery paths. Your website is no longer your most important digital asset. Arguably, your AI shadow, that interpretation of your brand, is becoming more important. There's the framework again, carbs, proteins and fats to deliver that balanced strategy to drive growth. And finally, success in the era of AI search depends less on gaming the algorithms, but is much more on creating a brand that machines can confidently recommend. That's why we talk so much about brand consistency, etc. I've broken everything down. There's lots of stats and facts and all sorts in my presentation. If you want to get access to these slides, and we've even created a bit of a cheat sheet that summarizes everything and the frameworks that we've talked about, please use that QR code. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you for reminding us the importance of our digital housekeeping, and also giving us concrete tools on basically what we need to check off, but also to remind us of the fragmented marketplace. And obviously, you showed us the importance of having a solid strategy that sort of takes us into the future. Thank you very much, Adam.
Thank you.
You will be joining me later with Steve Collins as well for a conversation where I think I will be able to dig a little bit deeper.
Yes, of course.
See you later.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And